They told me to shut down my garage band, but I turned their precious HOA meeting into my stage. Wait until you hear how I cranked the volume on their drama. If you love epic neighborhood showdowns, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the chaos. Let's dive into this wild HOA saga. The cul-de-sac was quiet, too quiet, the kind of suburban silence that felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for something to shatter it. In the heart of Willow Creek, a pristine neighborhood of manicured lawns and cookie-cutter houses, the HOA ruled like a petty monarchy. Every mailbox had to be regulation height, every hedge trimmed to perfection, and heaven forbid a basketball hoop lingered too long on the curb. For years, the residents bowed to the HOA's iron-fisted bylaws, but one newcomer was about to change everything. Ethan Carter, a 28-year-old graphic designer with a penchant for loud music and louder rebellion, had moved into 17 Maple Drive 6 months ago. His modest two-story home was unremarkable, blending into the sea of beige siding and red brick, but his garage was a different story. Inside, Ethan and his old college buddies, Jake, Mia, and Ryan, had revived their punk rock band, the Asphalt Rejects, practicing every weekend. The raw energy of their music, a mix of screeching guitars and pounding drums, spilled out into the neighborhood, rattling windows and fraying nerves. Complaints started as whispers, then emails, then certified letters from the HOA president, Marjorie Hensley, a woman whose smile was as sharp as her clipboard. Marjorie, in her mid-50s, was the undisputed queen of Willow Creek, her life's mission to enforce order and silence. She'd seen Ethan's type before, young, defiant, thinking they could flout the rules. The first letter cited Bylaw 12-7, no excessive noise after 7 p.m. Ethan ignored it, assuming it was a suggestion. The second letter threatened a $200 fine. Ethan taped it to his amp as a badge of honor. By the third letter, Marjorie had had enough. She called an emergency HOA meeting to address the nuisance at 17 Maple Drive, and Ethan, tipped off by a sympathetic neighbor, saw his chance. He wasn't just going to fight back, he was going to make a statement. As the HOA prepared their case in the community center, Ethan and his band plotted in the garage. They hauled out old speakers, dusted off their best set list, and rigged an impromptu stage on his driveway. The plan was audacious: play a full-blown concert during the HOA meeting loud enough to drown out Marjorie's gavel. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the cul-de-sac. As Ethan tuned his guitar, the strings humming with defiance. The neighborhood was about to learn that silence wasn't the only sound on Maple Drive. The community center was a sterile box of a building, all fluorescent lights and folding chairs where Marjorie held court. That evening, the room buzzed with anticipation as homeowners filed in, clutching their agendas like battle plans. Marjorie stood at the podium, her navy blazer pristine, her hair a helmet of blonde curls. She'd spent days preparing her case against Ethan, complete with a PowerPoint titled "Preserving Willow Creek's Tranquility." The slides listed noise complaints, timestamps of disturbances, and even a blurry photo of Ethan's drum kit, snapped through his garage window. The HOA board, 5 stern-faced retirees who nodded at her every word, sat at a long table ready to vote on a $500 fine and a cease and desist order for the band. Outside, the cul-de-sac was deceptively calm, the kind of evening where crickets would normally serenade the dusk. But in Ethan's garage, the atmosphere crackled with rebellion. The Asphalt Rejects had spent the day turning his driveway into a stage, dragging out amps, stringing extension cords, and testing microphones. Jake, the drummer, had borrowed a second kick drum for extra punch. Mia, the bassist, had painted a banner reading "Rock the Creek" in neon green. Ryan, the rhythm guitarist, had rigged a makeshift spotlight from a hardware store floodlight. Ethan, the frontman, felt a surge of adrenaline as he checked the time. 7 p.m., the exact moment Marjorie's gavel would fall. They'd chosen their loudest songs, a mix of originals and covers that would carry across the block. As the HOA meeting began, Marjorie's voice droned through the community center's open windows, outlining the egregious violations at 17 Maple Drive. Ethan counted down, his fingers hovering over his guitar strings. At 7:05, he struck the first chord, a blistering E minor that ripped through the evening air. The amps roared to life, Jake's drums thundering like a storm, Mia's bass shaking the ground. Neighbors peeked out from behind curtains, some annoyed, others curious. The music blasted across Willow Creek, a sonic middle finger to Marjorie's agenda. Inside the community center, the HOA board froze, their pens hovering over notepads. Marjorie's face reddened as she tried to shout over the noise, but the band's volume swallowed her words. Residents exchanged glances, some smirking, others horrified. Ethan's voice belted out lyrics about freedom and defiance, each note a deliberate jab at the HOA's control. The concert raged on, song after song, as cars slowed on the street, drawn to the spectacle. By the time the band paused for a water break, the HOA meeting was in chaos, and Ethan knew he'd lit a fuse that couldn't be snuffed out. The fallout was immediate and explosive. Marjorie, humiliated by the disruption, stormed out of the community center mid-meeting, her heels clicking furiously on the linoleum. The HOA board scrambled to regroup, but the damage was done. Half the attendees had slipped outside to watch the concert, some even tapping their feet to the beat. Ethan and the band played for an hour, their set list a defiant mix of punk anthems and original songs about breaking free from petty rules. Neighbors gathered on lawns, a mix of supporters and detractors forming an impromptu audience. Some cheered, drawn to the raw energy. Others recorded videos, ready to send them to Marjorie as evidence. By 8:30 p.m., the band wrapped up with a screeching cover of Sweet Home Alabama, Ethan's voice hoarse but triumphant. The crowd dispersed, some clapping, others muttering about property values. Ethan expected retaliation, and he wasn't wrong. The next morning, a certified letter arrived, this time with a $1,000 fine and a legal notice threatening eviction proceedings if the noise violations continued. Marjorie had upped the ante, rallying the HOA board to draft a new bylaw specifically targeting unauthorized public performances. She also hired a lawyer, a slick attorney named Gregory Platt, who specialized in HOA disputes. Ethan, undeterred, saw the escalation as a challenge. He called a band meeting and they brainstormed their next move. The HOA's new bylaw would take effect in 2 weeks, giving them a narrow window to push back. Mia suggested they go bigger, maybe organize a neighborhood-wide event to rally support. Jake proposed recording their music and distributing it as a protest. Ryan, ever the techie, floated the idea of live streaming their next performance to expose the HOA's overreach. Ethan liked the idea of a live stream. It would amplify their message beyond Willow Creek. They spent days planning, upgrading their equipment, and spreading the word through flyers and social media. Sympathetic neighbors, tired of Marjorie's iron grip, quietly pledged support, some offering to host watch parties for the stream. The cul-de-sac simmered with tension as the HOA prepared for war, and Ethan's band tuned up for round 2. The stage was set for a showdown that would echo far beyond Maple Drive. The livestream idea took on a life of its own. Ethan and the band created a social media page for the Asphalt Rejects, posting clips of their driveway concert and a manifesto railing against HOA tyranny. The page gained traction, with thousands of views from people who'd clashed with their own HOAs. Comments poured in, stories of petty fines and power-hungry board members fueling Ethan's resolve. The band announced a second concert, dubbed Rock the Creek 2.0, scheduled for the following Saturday at dusk, right as the HOA held its next meeting to ratify the new bylaw. They set up a crowdfunding campaign to rent professional sound equipment, and donations rolled in from strangers across the country. On the day of the concert, Willow Creek was a powder keg. Marjorie had caught wind of the plan and posted signs banning unauthorized gatherings, but Ethan's lawyer friend, Sarah, confirmed the HOA couldn't legally stop a performance on private property. The band transformed Ethan's driveway into a festival stage, with rented speakers, a fog machine, and a professional-grade camera for the livestream. Neighbors gathered, some openly cheering, others watching from their windows, torn between fear of Marjorie and admiration for Ethan's audacity. At 6 p.m., as Marjorie banged her gavel in the community center, Ethan hit the first note. The livestream went live, capturing the band's blistering performance as thousands tuned in online. The music was louder, tighter, more defiant than before, with Ethan pouring his soul into lyrics about standing up to bullies. The HOA meeting disintegrated as Marjorie's voice was drowned out again, her PowerPoint slides useless against the wall of sound. This time, though, the stakes were higher. Gregory Platt was in attendance, taking notes for a potential lawsuit. The live stream chat exploded with support, viewers donating and sharing stories of their own HOA battles. By the end of the night, the video had 50,000 views, and the Asphalt Rejects were a viral sensation. But Marjorie wasn't done. The next day, she filed a formal complaint with the city, claiming Ethan's concert violated noise ordinances. The band's victory felt bittersweet as they braced for the legal fight ahead, knowing they'd poked a bear that wouldn't back down. The legal battle turned Willow Creek into a battleground. Marjorie, backed by Gregory Platt, pushed the city to enforce a $2,000 fine and a restraining order against future performances. Ethan, with Sarah's help, countersued, arguing the HOA was overstepping its authority. The Asphalt Rejects livestream had made them folk heroes, with news outlets picking up the story and dubbing it the Battle of Maple Drive. Supporters launched a Free the Rejects hashtag, and the band's social media swelled to 100,000 followers. Ethan used the platform to rally the neighborhood, hosting a petition drive to reform the HOA's bylaws. Dozens of residents, emboldened by the band's defiance, signed on, sharing their own grievances about Marjorie's rule. The band played smaller acoustic sets in Ethan's backyard to keep the momentum going, careful not to violate city ordinances. Meanwhile, Marjorie's grip on Willow Creek began to slip. At the next HOA meeting, a faction of residents challenged her leadership, demanding a vote to replace her as president. The meeting descended into chaos as Marjorie clung to power, her voice shrill as she accused Ethan of destroying the community. Behind the scenes, Ethan and Sarah uncovered dirt. Marjorie had misused HOA funds for personal expenses, a discovery that turned the tide. The petition gained enough signatures to force a special election, and a new candidate, a mild-mannered retiree named Linda, emerged as a voice of reason. On the day of the election, the Asphalt Rejects played a quiet victory set in Ethan's garage, the music a backdrop to the neighborhood's rebirth. Marjorie lost in a landslide. Her reign over Willow Creek ended. The new HOA board repealed the anti-performance bylaw, and Ethan's band was free to practice again. The cul-de-sac, once suffocated by silence, now hummed with life. Kids played in the street, neighbors chatted over fences, and the band's music became a symbol of freedom. As Ethan strummed his guitar under the stars, he knew they'd not only won the battle but changed Willow Creek forever. If you loved this wild ride, hit that subscribe button, like the video, and share your own HOA horror stories in the comments. Let's keep the rebellion rocking.